digital. So we are using AI now to enhance our story writing in Jira. So, like, it's a bigger organization, so people write stories and those doesn't make sense anymore. So we are using that LLM tools to make them enhance better. And there's a tool which sees this and gives us a score. Your stories are better now. So these are the things we are using.
All right, very interesting perspectives. And I think how many of you feel like they're, oh, yeah, and this gentleman has one.
Yeah, my name is Abhishek. I'm from Micro Focus. So recently, I have come across one news where one kid was suffering from a disease, and the parents were struggling from past 15, 16 years, and they were not able to identify. The doctors were not able to identify the problem, and she just put it in Chat GPT, and she was able to get some direction. So here, she went into that direction. So AI has helped her. She has got some opinion, and she went into that direction, went for those scans, and finally doctors found out that the baby was suffering from rarest of the rare. So now it has not replaced the job of a doctor. Doctor is still treating, but then what has happened is that it has helped. AI has helped those doctors, those parents, and it has worked for us. So definitely it's augmented, and nobody's losing the job. Everybody is getting better at it.
That's the hope. I'll come back to you in the next session, sir. And thank you so much for all your perspectives and largely overwhelmingly positive responses to that. But I think we always feel like who feels like the rules are being rewritten in all ways at this time? Only one person. Okay, I feel like we're at the edge of a really transformative era, but yeah, I do feel that the rules are being written, and to help us to actually tackle those rewritten rules, how do we rewrite the rules of software and product design? Up next, we have a perspective from Geeky and Sankit Sahu. AI, of course, is now a part of the modern developer's toolkit, and in this talk, we're going to discover the tools and services enabling AI-powered solutions to accelerate MVPs, modernize enterprises, revolutionize design and UX, and much more. Over to you, Sanket. A big round of applause for Geeky and Sanket Sahu.
Okay, mic check. Works at the back? Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm Sanket. That's how I look on Twitter and LinkedIn, you might have seen. So you might have seen this logo as well, maybe right there. So I co-founded this company called Geeky Ants. We are an app development company here in Bangalore with some presence in the UK and in the US as well. We are about 400 people, and we are into app development related to React Native, and we also have a lot of active developer community, like React Native Bangalore is one of our initiatives that we run. Apart from that, we are very active in the open source community as well. You might have heard of component library like Native Base, famous in React Native, or VueStack, or maybe some products. That's about Geeky Ants. And if not that, oops, there's a lag. You might have seen this. So this is a failed caravanning dream. This tweet went viral on Twitter. I built a fully off-grid caravan to live my childhood Swadesh movie dreams, meant for eat, sleep, and probably work on the go. And I'm on a mission to bring design and code together. So anything that has art and tech, any intersection of that, I stand on top of it. Most of my projects and initiatives are around the same, like design and code, UI libraries. To start with this talk, let's go back to the late 90s. Story time. I know a lot of you were not there in 90s. There's a lot of young crowd, but a lot to learn from the past. You might have heard of Visual Basic. Okay, the great grandfather of what we call VS Code today, and it used to look like this. Okay, all right. So this was an interface where you would actually drag and drop probably text box, buttons, and images, and you would design your app all in the UI. And this is back at what, 98, 99? And once you're done designing the interface, you would go ahead and just wire up the logic in a language called BASIC. So you did not have to code the interface. The designing and coding happened at the same time. I remember I built in early 2000, I built software for my uncle around patient and doctor management using Visual Basic, and it was like really nice to do it. And then came Adobe Flash. Any Adobe Flash fans here? Or have you used? Okay, nice, good to see. Adobe Flash was in some sense similar to Visual Basic, where they would give you a blank canvas and you go ahead and draw, like paint and brush. And as you do these, it can directly go to your website. You would not have to again code all those, say, the circles that you see on the screen in SVG, or animate them using frame or motion or anything of that sort. Whatever you did in the tool, it was directly shippable. And only when you needed to do some API calls or business logic implementation, you would go back to coding in a language called ActionScript that came with Adobe Flash. And this was in early 2000s. I remember I built my personal website using Adobe Flash. And also a couple of customers, I built slideshow apps and a bunch of really cool things. Early 2000. But it got killed. It got killed with the announcement of iPhone. So iPhone happened in 2007, but Apple decided to not support embedded widgets in your web pages. So in Safari, there was no support of Adobe Flash. So Flash pushed us 20 years ahead of time with all its nice technology, ActionScript, animation and whatnot in 2002, 2003. But that did not make it post the iPhone era. It was really good. And then we had something called Dreamweaver. And Dreamweaver used to look like this. We had design, the HTML output, and then we had code at the bottom. And you could select anything from the right panel, like the layer tree as well. And it was very easy to jump between HTML and code at any point in time. And it was super simple. What I'm trying to say is, it was that simple. Almost what? 2 decades of disconnected tools. Today we design somewhere else and redevelop the same thing in code, but it was not like that 20 years back. And that's why I have this topic to how do we rewrite the rules of product and software today. But there's some hope, and I want to make building apps fun again. Let's enter the Gen AI era. I see scared faces in the crowd, but let's not worry about it, because I think there's a lot of fun things that we can do with Gen AI. I can see people building really nice games, and they call it vibe coding. And it's easier than ever to build really nice games, interfaces, not just rectangles, but actually 3D things. Probably do things in a more you can have some physics engine embedded there. You can probably build your own website using these vibe coding techniques. And it's very easy, because for LLMs it's pretty straightforward. You just prompt say 4 lines, and then it generates the whole 3JS code, and you can actually ship it. So it's somewhat getting fun again to build apps, or web apps as you call it. And this is a screenshot. Anybody knows this screenshot? Yeah? Yeah. Levels.io? Yeah, so Levels.io built this game. It's a flight simulator game. He vibe coded this and he had put it online. And the balloons that you see, he had put them for advertisement. So people would actually buy these balloons. You can see companies like chatbase.co, and there's Charger Backstop. So these companies are buying these balloons. So he's using those as advertisement. And he built this all without coding. So it's kind of getting to fun to build these things again. So we are seeing 2 big shifts. I think in the previous talk as well you heard that we need to reinvent how we do things. And the 2 big shifts that I see are augmenting the workflows or maybe introducing new tools, and that replaces the existing workflows. Let's talk about augmenting the workflows. So everybody knows we have the force of VS Code, like billion-dollar folks of VS Code, which is open source, Cursor and Windsurf, and this is how we are able to augment our whole process and workflows of development. So there is Client, which is a VS Code extension, and not just at code, even in design we have seen like Canva AI and the recent announcement of Figma Make and Adobe Firefly. So we are seeing all these augmentation happening in design and code both. What about replacing workflows? Replit, Bold, V0, Lovable. We have talked a lot about these, how these things are like changing the game. For example, I have seen companies using Lovable and Bold in their sales process to do POCs right way before the project even starts. So these are like new tools entering the market, and this changes how we actually build software or build POCs maybe. And we at Geeky Ants are also trying to solve problems with our own tools. We are building a couple of tools. And the first one is business process automation tool with agentic AI. I know heavy words, but let me break it down. So it's like you get, when you build software, you start from idea and go all the way to production. And at every stage, there are a different kind of role involved. Like, okay, ideation phase, design phase, code phase, testing phase, and probably DevOps and all those things. What we are trying to do is bring all this software development lifecycle into a platform and have one-on-one agents involved with every role, so that most of the jobs can be done by agents with humans being in the loop. So we are trying to reinvent how consulting and agencies work with a whole new way of working. We call it agents.io. So this, we are going to announce it in the coming months. But yeah, this is the first thing that we are building. And the second one is, okay, this is a video. So the designer developer handoff problem that I was talking about. Like the disconnected tools, like design and code. How cool would it be if like designers directly shipped production code? So we have designers on one side and developers on the other side. Then we have got tools like Figma, XD, and Framer on the designer side. And we have like different world for developers altogether with VS Code, IntelliJ, and Cursor. And there are a lot of like miscommunication that happens. And you might have heard designers saying that, okay, developer said this can't be done in code. I designed this fancy, nice animation, but this can't be done in code. There's a lot of friction and wasted cycles that goes back and forth between designers and developers. And I want to solve this with a tool called Shaper. Shaper helps you bring designers and developers on Git repo. So it's a design tool where design is code and code is design. Let's see an example. So how does it differ from the existing tools? We have design tools on the right side, like Framer, Figma, which are visual first. They are really nice. While we have prompt to code tools on the left side, that is Lovable, Bold, and Replit. These are really good, but they go from prompt to code, but they have like limited visual capabilities, while the design tools have like really nice visual capabilities, but they lack at code. Shaper like stands at the intersection of both, and it's like design and code at the same time. Let's have a quick demo. So the Shaper's website is built in Shaper itself, and it was designed by a designer and shipped straight away to the production. So what you see is the tool where a designer is able to like move things around and probably create a new page. And when that happens, it's actually creating a Next.js route in the background. And as you select elements, these are like real divs and real components that designer is selecting on the screen. So here we are trying to replicate like the hero section from the home page all the way to a new page. We call it page 2. And the designer is like working on it, like trying to remove the background, trying to like change the background color and remove a few things. And as a designer, the designer can go ahead and probably add, say, an HTML button. And as that happens, the designer would like the right panel. You might have seen this interface in tools like Figma and Framer, where you can actually change the height, change the padding, probably change the flex layout and give it some background color and text color as well. And post that, what happens in design tools? They give it to developers, they replicate it, but here it's all real code. If we go and look at the code, it looks like this. So we can go ahead and open this in VS Code, and you have the whole thing coded. The on the left side of the screen that you see is what was shipped by a designer. And now developer is going to add a pop-up, a dialog model, and with some local state of React, they will change that. And yeah, with use state, and that's the button that the designer created. And we can add some like on-click behavior, and that shows the pop-up. And then now we go back to the tool and click on the play button, and we can see that it's now coded. So developers can pick it up right from where the designers left it off. And from here, designers can go ahead and click on the model and actually design it. Like select the whole backdrop of this thing, the blue color layout that you see, and change the color, change the radius. So it's at one single place. There's no separate world. And it doesn't stop there. Obviously, we have seen prompt to design or prompt to code is the same thing here. And you can go ahead and like prompt that, okay, I want to build, say, a testimonial section in the existing website. And you can have a testimonial section on the website. And it would have all the context to match it with the design. So this was one shot. Like the prompt was very short, and in one shot, we got this testimonial section, which actually matches with the style guide and design philosophy of the project that you're working on. And after this designer or developer, both of them have like full flexibility of like changing things in design and code. So yeah, that's Shaper. The software development lifecycle is about to change, and we are here for it. Get ready for the future. The lines between developer, designer, product owners are blurring, and this is very important for those who are scared of AI taking their jobs. I think this is what you need to do. Probably jump roles, switch roles, and think of problem and outcome more than just your core responsibility as a developer or a designer. Solving problem wins. And yeah, let's make way for what I call builders. And yeah, if you want to sign up for Shaper, we have the wait list open, and you can scan this QR code. And would love to chat and would love to take questions as well. Yeah, I think I can take a couple of questions. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
First of all, very interesting tool. Now, regulations of using generative AI is getting stricter and stricter. So, in this entire construct of designing and coding, especially designing, right? How are you making sure that you are compliant to whatever design and it is not violating any copyrights or anything?
So this uses the same LLM that most of the prompt to code tools use. This is using Claude Sonnet 3.7 and the designs that we have that you see is directly coming from rendering those elements, those code that was generated by Claude Sonnet 3.7. So we don't have our custom model. We are giving the right context, and it generates the UI that is generally available on all the tools. So no copyright infringement there. I hope that answers the question. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
violating any of those designing principle and copyrights.
So it's using code. There is nothing separate at design. It's generating code and rendering things, and it's the same as the base model, that is either Claude or Gemini 2.5. So we leave those things to the creators of the large language models altogether. Yeah. Okay. I think that. Sorry.
Hey, hi, this is Jagdish. So I had a couple of questions for you. First thing is you're writing code on the fly. So does that affect your development time or build time? And secondly, most of the initial examples that you showed were mostly static developments, like not much of interactions. So even now, these interactions need to be built by humans, right? Are there any tools which can convert these interactions to code automatically? Are there any thoughts?
I think the first part is like, how do we handle the dynamic behavior? Correct. So whatever you saw on the screen is a full running Next.js app. So any dynamic behavior is actually reflected to the designer as well. So if there is an API call, when the app loads, it will actually load the entire app, do the API call, and load the things, and then designers would be able to edit those. So everything is dynamic here. And the second question was.
Yeah, so most of the examples that you gave, right, Visual Studio, Visual Basic and all those, they didn't support too much of dynamic nature per se. So are there any tools that we're looking into which can mimic these interactions, like user behavior directly into code?
We'll get there. I think it's not there right now, but yeah, most of the dynamic behavior is covered. And if there is an animation added by, say, the developer, it will reflect to the designer. Also, we don't have controls for animation for designers right now, but it will evolve. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think we're out of time for questions. Sanket, thank you. A big round of applause for bringing your fun and cool vibe here to devsparks and also taking us all on a tech nostalgia trip. I think a lot of the late 90s, early 2000s really enjoyed that and connected with that. So thank you so very much. And from the tech nostalgia trip, it's now time to move into the future. The future of developer careers. Of course, we've touched on this a fair bit, and we're looking forward to an interesting perspective in our next session with Hacker Earth. Vishwasam Shukla builds vibrant dev communities, dev assessment software, and hiring pipelines. And in this talk, he will be sharing key findings and trends defining the future of software development for Indian devs. Over to you, Vishwasam Shukla.
I hope you can hear me. Am I audible? Quick show of hands. All right, so this is as recent as last Wednesday. I was talking to my CEO and we were brainstorming on some idea. This was about how we can bring in something for our hacker developer community, and we were thinking about how a code battle between different LLM models and stuff. And while we were brainstorming, I was parallelly thinking, what if we could actually prototype this really quick and then have a discussion instead of just talking about, our thoughts. I sent a simple prompt. Actually, I generated a PRD using ChatGPT and sent a simple prompt to Replit. Replit uses the concept of checkpoints. It gives you 10 checkpoints for free. The application that we were trying to sort of conceptualize in our heads was created as a prototype using Replit in about a couple of hours. It took about 7 out of 10 checkpoints. As a free user, you could do that, and I had an application ready. I'm sure a lot of you have used AI so far to generate code. A quick show of hands, whoever has not used AI so far to generate any code. Is there anyone here? If you're a developer, of course. If you're not a developer, it doesn't really matter. All right, so pretty much everyone has actually used AI to generate code, and this is what we're going to talk about today when we talk about how the future is actually changing for all developers. As you can see, I had written this as a memo to my internal team. It was titled as Can't Hide Behind Code. Sanket was reminding me of this some time back while we were chatting backstage. The thing is, code is now a commodity. If you've been writing Java, you've been writing Python, it was your leverage. But today, it is no more a leverage. It is a commodity in its true form. AI can write the same Python, same Java, same JavaScript, whatever you want to write. The value creation has actually shifted. People were ready to pay you for writing code. They will not be paying you for just writing code anymore. I don't want to create a panic in the house. I'm sure a lot of you already have those questions, but that is the reality, and we'll get to how to solve for it and what is it that you guys can do. But The true value that you can create as a developer, as an engineer, gets created even before you actually lay your hands on your keyboard. It gets created in your mind, in your thoughts, in your clarity of thoughts, in your judgment. Even before you start to write your actual code out. You have to start thinking about the user behind the user stories. All of us are very, used to, working on PRs and Jira tickets and user stories and stuff. I'm sure all of you are aware of all of that. But the real value actually is in identifying and connecting with the user of your product. And if you can do that, you are going to add more value. You are continuously going to add more value with or without writing code. You also have to develop a certain amount of business fluency. Let's take a pause here. How many of you actually understand the unit economics of the business that you're working for or you're building yourself? All right, not bad. It's probably about 5% of the crowd. Now that's my point. If you do not understand the business, if you do not understand the metrics that move the business, if you do not understand the economics behind the business, it is time to scale up. That is what you need to do as a developer. You cannot be, like I said, hiding behind code. And of course, the impact of AI, if I have to sort of summarize it, it is basically raising the floor, which means the entry barriers are higher. For you to land a job in the industry today, you will have to have additional skills. You will have to scale up a little bit, but it is also raising the ceiling. And what that means is that people who will master AI, people who will actually understand business metrics, people who will actually understand and connect and empathize with the user behind the user stories, those guys will actually be able to create 10x more leverage. So it's actually raising the ceiling for a lot of you as well, and that's an opportunity, right? Let's talk a little bit about future. What you can see on the slide is basically how the agentic future would look like. I'm sure when you said a lot of you have actually used AI, you've used GPT to generate some code. You've probably used Claude. Some of you might have used Cursor. Some of you might have used some other tools, Replit, for instance, that I talked about. The future is actually agentic, right? And I'm not throwing these words very lightly. This is a change that is happening. I sent over these slides about a week back to the team at Your Story, and in just the last week, OpenAI has actually come up with its own coding agent. It's called Codex. Some of you might have already seen it. Claude has its own coding agent. Developers are actually able to use these agents and they are parallelly creating multiple PRs, multiple changes, right? They are configuring these code agents to be able to do 4 or 5 tasks in parallel. That is what the future looks like. That is what is agentic future. So you used to write code in your plain vanilla IDs. Now you sort of are moving towards Cursor and Claude and GPT. And the future will be actually about managing a swarm of such agents which can do specific jobs for you, whether it is coding a certain application, or it is deploying those applications, or it is taking those applications and scaling them up for 10x, 100x scale. All of those things can actually be achieved through agents in the near future, right? And the economy will be such that these agents will need somebody to orchestrate them, right? Imagine these agents who have certain amount of autonomy. Imagine these agents who have certain amount of freedom to even do transactions. So for instance, today you will not trust an agent to launch X number of servers on AWS or GCP or whatever else, right? But tomorrow you will start trusting them. Go back to when internet was launched, nobody was comfortable actually giving credit card details or any other bank details on any website on internet. Today, we all are very, very comfortable with that. And that is what is going to happen with agents as well. You will slowly start to trust those agents. And you will start to trust those agents to the extent that you will want them to make some transactions and transfer resources. That is how the agent economy is going to look like. What is also very important is that because these agents will become commonplace, they need to have a certain consistent identity. Imagine you are working in a team of developers or in any kind of a team. You know those people, how those people behave, what is their role, how do they show up, what is their attitude towards work, and what is their skill set. That is precisely what the agents will also have to be developed like. Agents will have a persona, if you may. Agents will have to be built to behave very consistently. That is not happening today, but it will happen, and it is bound to happen. Communication protocols, when internet started, it was built on top of TCP/IP, we came up with HTTP and so on. Today, there are no standard protocols for agents to communicate between each other. That is not coming. And maybe some of you in this room can actually go ahead and build those things, whether it is identity, context, memory, communication protocols, all of those things that are getting built. And some of you, if you are excited about the future, might want to solve some of those problems. And lastly, trust, right? Ultimately, it boils down to whether I can trust a system or an agent to be able to do a job. And if you can't trust the agent, there is no point, it's not going to go very far. So the trust has to be baked into the system. Today, that is not there. Tomorrow, it will happen. It is bound to happen. So that's what the agentic future is going to look like. Now going to what we as developers can do about it and where do we see ourselves. All right, it's loading. Good. So I've tried to actually do this across two different axes. In the y-axis, you see there are folks who have high AI fluency and product sense. Bottom of the y-axis, people who have low AI fluency and low product sense. X-axis, you will see shallow domain knowledge, and towards the far right, you will see deep domain expertise. People who do not have domain knowledge and are low on AI fluency are clearly at risk today. And there is an opportunity for them to actually skill up on any of these other quadrants that you see, right? But you cannot have low domain knowledge and low AI fluency. That is not going to work, right? If you are sort of, good with your AI fluency, if you are used to using some of these AI tools that we talked about or agents that we talked about, and you have low domain knowledge, even that would work. You would potentially become some with your own companies will come up with something like this when they come up with these roles. You would have heard about white coders and stuff, but even that is a transient role. I feel somebody who has a capability to orchestrate different agents will take up some of those roles. Legacy specialist is basically some people who have very high domain knowledge. Imagine you have crafted a lot of distributed systems in your career. Imagine you've done database migrations. Imagine you've done a lot of cloud infrastructure related stuff. All of those things will actually matter a lot still, right? So you were not just writing plain code, but you also were orchestrating and architecting some of those complex systems. Those people will still have a position in the new world. And lastly, on the top right corner, you see the future EMs and staff engineers. These are guys, this is possibly the best quadrant to be in. If you are high on AI fluency, if you understand your business metrics really well, and you also have the domain knowledge, you would be able to see yourself in the top quadrant, and that's probably the aspiration for most of you, right? Moving on. This is very crucial as of today. Some of you might identify yourself as a backend engineer. Some of you might say, hey, I'm a full stack guy. Some of you might say, hey, I only handle ML ops. Or some of you might say, okay, I'm a data scientist. The reality is, all of those rigid career roles and titles are under challenge. People will want you to move elastically between those roles. Businesses want their people to be able to pick up new skills, do different things. If you've seen yourself in a silo so far, come out of it. That is the discomfort that you have to go through for a short period to be able to prove your worth in the new world. So that's this career elasticity or the job role elasticity that you have to keep in mind even today. And try and move out of your comfort zones as quickly as possible, as frequently as possible. All right. All of these things that I talked about are changes that are happening happening today. So how do you deal with all this change? If there is one takeaway from all of that I've talked about, it is this. Focus on what has not changed. Focus on things that never change. And what never changes is the need for high agency. And this is not the same as agents. This is agency in you as a human being, in you as a developer. Need for high agency will always and always exist. There are folks who you would hear around you who say, hey, the product manager hasn't really given me any specs to work with, or the designer hasn't shipped their designs yet. Somebody might say, hey, our processes are actually looking bad. That is not a high agency person. High agency people are those who actually believe in shaping their circumstances, who believe in changing, almost changing the reality for themselves. They do not depend on others to enable them every time. That is what you will have to become. You will have to become the shaper of systems if you may, right? You have to become a high agency individual to be able to survive in this kind of a world which is going through such a rapid shift. So focus on what is not changing. And this is not going to change in 10 years, 20 years down the line, no matter what AI does. If you are a high agency system, you will thrive, no matter what, right? So try and ask better questions because answers are already there with AI. But if you can ask better questions, you are needed. You are adding that value. If you can act without permission, and I'm not saying do stuff which is wrong, but basically act without permission in the sense that you take initiatives. Right? If you can shift things which you believe will create impact, you have a value that you're adding. Of course, as the last line says, the 10x developer won't actually write 10x code, right? They will actually deliver 10x impact, and that is where you need to be. You have to start thinking about the impact that you create, and basically going back to what I said initially, the value that you're adding has to be added even before you touch your keyboard to write any kind of code. That is where the value lies. Thank you guys. Happy to take some questions. Yeah.
This is a question about your company as well. So, many people take the test and they become the ranks. You are also ranking the developers. Now, the agents are giving their direct outputs. How that is going to change and what kind of, how we are going to evaluate the humans.
Sure. So you're saying that agents are giving you output. How does that? That's exactly what I was talking about. So you need to think about what is it that you want the agents to do for you, right? Use that your tools as somebody who's working for you. If you can define the what and the why for agents, you will still add value. If you are just trying to figure out solutions using agents, that's not going to work. You will have to define the problem. You will have to understand why you want to solve that problem, and then use agents to be able to arrive at solutions.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So actually, you spoke about building the trust in AI applications, and what kind of things we need to consider to build that trust when we actually build this AI applications.
You're saying what kind of trust?
Yeah, I mean, what are the things that we need to consider to build that trustworthy applications?
Got it. Yeah, so that's a very interesting space. If you want to build agents where people can start trusting them, I think there has to be transparency in what you're building. That's the very key ingredient. Today, what happens with some of these AI tools, whether it's GPT or Claude or anything else, people are not able to trust them enough. I think somebody was asking here, what happens to copyrights, for instance, right? I think you, ma'am, were asking, what happens to copyrights if you are generating so much using whatever already exists, right? I think those answers need to be provided, right? That transparency has to come. So you have to start looking at that aspect. The other thing that you can do is
गणेश वो दो कुप्पे खोलो गणेश ये दो कुप्पे खोलिए जिन लोगों को बुलाया स्मॉल ट्विस्ट होना एक बार आएगा तो खाना उधर खाने पे नहीं कर पाएंगे ये नहीं कर सकता मैं हिसाब का मजा पता नहीं
So the idea is how do